Hello guys, welcome to Buddy Academy and this is me Uma here and I'm back with new concepts in biology today. So before we go on to our class, it's tip time and here we go. Tip number 5. Adopt best study policies or strategies to excel in your exam. Creating a plan and sticking to it, being disciplined and punctual in your studies will help you to excel in your exam. So what are we going to see in our class? We are going to learn about the second part of the chapter, molecular basis of inheritance. You already know the weightage of this chapter and how important this chapter is. So without any delay, let us move on to our class. So yes, we are going to begin with the topic transcription. So what is transcription? The process of copying genetic information from DNA to RNA is generally termed as transcription, and here the principle of complementarity governs the process of transcription. So what is the difference here? Except for adenine, now adenine will pair with uracil here instead of thymine. So we know that in DNA thymine will be present, whereas in RNA uracil will be present. So why both the strands are not copied during a transcriptional process? So transcription is helpful to make the process easier for carrying the genetic information. If again two strands are being copied, what will be happening? One segment of DNA would be coding for two different proteins, and this would complicate the process again of what? Genetic information transfer machinery. So secondly, it would also form a double-stranded RNA, which would again result in complicating the process. So yes, transcription involves a transcriptional unit which has three things, and these three are very important. So a transcriptional unit in a DNA is defined primarily by three regions that are present in a DNA. So the first one is a promoter, second one is a structural gene, and the third one is a terminator. So what are they? Promoter, structural gene and a terminator are very important for transcription. So since the two strands have opposite polarity, DNA-dependent DNA polymerase also catalyzes the polymerization only in one direction. So here also same way like replication, only in one direction the enzyme is able to proceed continuously, and that strand is only being copied. So that strand is called as the template strand, and you can see here this is the template strand. So here what RNA polymerase is going to catalyze. Before we saw in replication, we saw DNA polymerase is catalyzing the reaction there. So here who is going to do it? It is RNA polymerase, and again that RNA polymerase is DNA dependent. So again who will be the mother strand? That is template strand here. It is 3' to 5', and the new strand will be synthesized in the direction of 5' to 3', and you should remember this. So you should also remember one more thing. The strand which does not code for anything is referred to as coding strand. So template strand is nothing but from where the information is going to be copied. The strand which is not going to code for anything is called as coding strand. So why we are mentioning this is everything that is the promoter, terminator region we are going to define will be in reference with the coding strand. That's why we are mentioning coding strand, and we are telling that it will be important. So we are going to see about promoter. So what is promoter? Promoter is a DNA sequence that provides the binding site for RNA polymerase, and it is the presence of a promoter in a transcription unit also defines the template and coding strand. So as I said, this will be your coding strand and promoter is present there. So promoter is present at the -10 and -35 sequence. So here -10 and -35 sequence are given because it is just present on the left side. You need not confuse, it is just present on the left side. So they have given it as -10 and -35 sequence. So this -10 sequence is also called as starter box or even Pribnow box or sometime Hogness box. So this -35 sequence and -10 sequence are promoter region. In that -10 sequence will have names like Pribnow box, Tata box and Hogness box. So from here after the 10th place, so for example this is the 10th sequence. So this starting will be the 10th sequence. So from here after 10 places proceeds, from that place only your transcription will start or begin. So this is an indication for the enzyme to bind. So next, the terminator is located towards 3' end of the coding strand and usually defines the end process of transcription. So yes, you can see here the terminator will be located at the 3' end of the coding strand. So here this is the coding strand and here the terminator is located, and there are additional regulatory sequences that may be present further upstream or downstream of the promoter. So yes, what is transcription unit and the gene? So you know what a gene is. A gene is defined as the functional unit of inheritance. So a stretch of DNA that encodes a single RNA molecule and other sequences necessary for transcription is called as the transcriptional unit or transcription unit. So what is that? A stretch of DNA which is encoding a single RNA molecule and other necessary sequences for transcription is called as a transcription unit. So the structural gene and transcription unit can be said to be monocistronic mostly in eukaryotes or polycistronic mostly in bacteria or prokaryotes. That is, they code for only one protein and they code for many protein, mono and poly. So cistron is nothing but a segment of DNA that is coding for a polypeptide, that is protein. So further, a transcription can be interrupted by split genes or interrupted gene, or that is sequences which are containing introns. So introns are nothing but intervening sequences between exon, you can see here, and they do not code for anything. After the production of RNAs, what has to happen? Some modifications will happen to remove this intron. So these are the intron sequences which will be removed and exons will be attached together. So the coding sequences are defined as exons. The exons are interrupted by introns. Introns do not appear in mature or processed RNA. As I said, after transcription, some process has to be done. So you should remember that both replication and transcription will occur inside the nucleus, whereas translation, that is your protein synthesis machinery or mechanism, will happen only in the cytoplasm, that is in your ribosome, you know that. So from the nucleus, the RNA has to leave there. So before that, what will happen? There will be some modifications happening. At that time, what will happen? All these non-coding sequences, that is intron, will be removed. So there are different types of RNA. One is mRNA, that is messenger, transfer RNA, tRNA, and rRNA, which is the ribosomal RNA. You should remember that all these three RNAs will have an important role in protein synthesis, which we will be learning in the class. So what will this mRNA do? They provide the template. So tRNA will read the genetic code and bring the specific amino acid, again about which I will be telling you in protein synthesis. So what is rRNA going to do? Plays a structural and catalytic role during translation process. So these are the steps involved in transcription. So first one is initiation, second one is elongation, and the final part is termination. So now we will be watching a video on transcription. So from that you can easily understand the process. So this RNA polymerase enzyme, as I said, will do all the work like opening the helix and every work. So this will have a factor called as sigma factor, which will be allowing it to identify the promoter region and bind to the initiation site. So yes, transcription in prokaryotes. So imagine, so this is a bacterial cell. So what is present inside the cell? The cell wall and the nucleoid region, plasma membrane, cytoplasm, and they also contain some ribosomes. So here we are going into the nucleoid region. We are just having the promoter here at -10 and -35 sequence. You can see this is the RNA polymerase and sigma factor. Together they are called as holoenzyme. And what is being happening here? So now what is going to happen is it is unwinding the DNA and creating an open complex. So this is a transcription bubble. So you can see this is the coding strand, whereas this strand is the template strand. So now what is happening after the promoter region, that is after -10 or -35 sequences, it is going to move and start the transcriptional process. So now what is going to happen? additional strands are going to be added. So here which strand is going to be added? Instead of thymine, what complementarity is going to be added? It is going to be uracil pairing for adenine. So now elongation process is happening. So ribosome here is required for the structural stability and proper arrangement of the bases that are being added. So now termination is happening. So here termination is independent of a Rho factor. The polymerase enzyme itself will identify and it will clear. So if it is Rho dependent termination, there is a factor called Rho factor which is required for termination. This Rho factor will identify the termination site and it has to do the termination process. The polymerase will do the termination process. This Rho factor will be required for the identification of termination. So this is all for your transcription process. So next topic will be about the translation, and before that we will also study about the genetic code. So as we said, some modifications has to be done to that RNA. So the first modification will be splicing. So splicing is nothing but removing of intron. So for this we will be having spliceosome enzyme, so which will be helping. So some snRNPs, that is small nuclear ribonuclear proteins, will also be helping in this. So spliceosome will be helping in cutting off introns and joining both the exons, and you can see that these exons are being removed, and this is a mature RNA molecule in which mRNA molecule in which there is no intron or intervening sequences. So apart from splicing, we also have two modification, which is nothing but poly A tail addition. So polyadenylate addition, which will be containing about 50 to 250 adenine nucleotide added to the 3'N. At 5'N, what will be happening? It is also called as capping and tailing. So this is tailing and 5'N is capping. So 5-methylguanosine is being added. So in order to what? In order to prevent RNA from reacting. If you could remember in previous classes itself, we saw that RNA is a highly reactive molecule, right? So it should not react with other molecules because it has to involve in protein production. So that only these ends are being tailed and capped in order to prevent that RNA from reacting with other substances. You can see there are some regions which are named as UTR here. So these are very important because these are some untranslated region which do not code for any protein are present. So why this UTR is present is they will be increasing the efficiency of translation. For example, if the entire RNA is having protein coding sequences, what will happen? Eventually the efficiency of that particular mechanism will be lowered, right? So for this they are having some UTR, that is untranslated region. So next topic of ours will be genetic code. So genetic code is nothing but a sequence of 3 codons which are coding for amino acids. Before that we should know something. So the process of translation requires transfer of genetic information from a polymer of nucleotide to the polymer of amino acid. Neither does any complementarity exist between the nucleotides and amino acids, nor could be drawn theoretically. But there existed some evidence to support the notation that changes in nucleic acid, that is genetic material, was responsible to cause a change in amino acid sequences that are present in protein. So this led to the proposition of a genetic code that could direct the sequence of amino acid during synthesis of protein. So why this process is translation? Now they are translating one language, that is from nucleic acid language, it is being translated to the language of amino acid. So you should remember these scientists because they are very, very important. So it was George Gamow, a physicist, who argued that since there were only 4 bases and if they could code for 20 amino acids, they should constitute a combination of bases. So what did he propose? He proposed that 4 cube, that is 4 into 4 into 4, would generate 64 codons which can code for some amino acids. So you should remember this name, George Gamow. He is a physicist. So what he said? He said 4 cube, that is 4 into 4 into 4, can generate 64 codon which can code for different amino acids. So next, the chemical method which was developed by Hargobind Khorana. So it was instrumental in synthesizing RNA molecules with defined combination of bases like homopolymers. For example, UUU, which can code for phenylalanine, AAA for lysine, CCC for proline, and GGG for glycine, like that. So next, who helped is Marshall Neilberg's cell-free system for protein synthesis, where they synthesized the protein without the help of an living cell. So finally helped the code to be deciphered. Similarly, the enzyme, that is polynucleotide phosphorylase, Ochoa's enzyme, named after Severo Ochoa, was also helpful in polymerizing RNA with defined sequences in a template, and finally the genetic code was prepared. So this is the genetic code. So 64 codons are present. So you can remember them easily by following this kind of table. First you should draw a 4 into 4 table. Then you should name the codes accordingly. You can go in this order itself. For example, for the first letter, you can write UCAG, and then for the second letter also you can write UCAG. Again, when it is coming for the third letter, what you should do, you must go one by one. For example, this is U, this is C, and AG. All 4 should come in one box itself so that you can easily multiply. So for example, U and this U will give you one code. U and C is giving you other code. UUA is giving you third code, and UUG is giving you fourth code. Similarly, 64 codons are being formed here, and you can see that. So which are coding for 20 different amino acids. So now we are going to read about the properties of genetic code, which are very important from your exam point of view. There will be hardly 6 points, and you have to know all these 6 in order to score. So these will be like definite questions in your board exams. So first, we know that codon is triplet. So it is a triplet codon. So codon is always triplet. So what they are telling is, all the 64 will not have amino acids, only 61 codons code for amino acids. You can see here stop, stop and stop, UAA, UAG and UGA, right? So these 3 do not have any codons, and these are called as stop codons, and they are also called as nonsense codons. So they do not code for any amino acid, they will help in termination of the protein synthesis process. So one codon codes for only one amino acid, hence it is unambiguous and specific. So it will be very specific and unambiguous. Generally, ambiguity in English means like one word or thing will have some few meanings, right? So here there is only one for each, so it is unambiguous and specific. So one codon will code for only one amino acid, so it is unambiguous. The third point is, some amino acids will have more than one codon. So that property is called as degenerative or degenerate property. So fourth one is, the codon is read in an RNA in an continuous fashion, and there are no punctuations like full stop, comma, like that. So you should remember, there are no punctuation, they are read in a continuous manner. So there is no full stop or comma. How they are read? They are read in triplet codon fashion, like UUU, UAG, UGA, UAC, something like that. So next will be, the code is nearly universal. From bacteria to human being, UUU would code for phenylalanine. Some of the exceptions are mitochondrial codons and some protozoans. So universal in the sense, from smallest living microscopic organism to human beings, till human beings, these codons are applicable. So one more thing is, AUG has dual function. So what dual functions it has? It codes for methionine. We know this codon will code for amino acid, and apart from that, what it is doing? It is also acting as an initiator codon, which means it is going to initiate all the translation process. So this acts as the initiator codon. So finally, we are going to learn about terminator codons, which you have already read. It is also called as stop codon or nonsense codon. So there are 3 stop codons. So UAG is called as amber, opal or umber or UGA, it is UAA, it is ochre. So amber, opal and ochre. So UAG, UGA and UUA. You should remember all these things. So next will be mutations and the genetic code. Mutation, if you could remember, we have already seen about this in previous classes. So relationship between genes and DNA are understood by mutation studies. Why? Because a small change is happening, it may result in the loss of a gene or it may result in the alteration of gene. So what will happen eventually? It will also lead to a malfunction or loss of a gene, loss of a function. A classic example of point mutation we have already seen, change in a single base pair for beta globin chain in human hemoglobin that result in change of amino acid residue from glutamine to valine. If you are not wrong, you are thinking about sickle cell anemia now, which we have discussed in previous class itself. So that is it. Sickle cell anemia condition is because of that. What is going to happen here? Instead of amino acid glutamine, valine is being substituted. So because of point mutation. Why? Because of a change in a single base pair. So you can ask why change in single base pair is causing these many confusions. You can see this. For example, UGC is coding for cysteine. So if it is just one base pair here, UGA, it is going to be stop codon. It is not coding for any protein, and UGG is again going to code for tryptophan. For example, UAU, again if there is a change, it is going to code for tyrosine. So UCU, again how the changes are getting complicated, or even if it is a simple change, just one amino acid if it is changed, what is going to happen? Sorry, one base if it is going to change, what is going to happen? The entire protein will have a defect or change. So insertion or deletion of one or two base pair changes the entire reading frame from the point of insertion or deletion. We have already seen this. What is frame shift mutation? Just insertion or deletion of any one base pair or any removal of one base pair. What will be happening? We will read the entire frame shift of that code wrong. So that what will happen? It will code for completely different polypeptide. So finally, tRNA, the adapter molecule. So Crick postulated the presence of an adapter molecule that would on one hand read the code, on the other hand would bind to specific amino acid. So you can see the structure of tRNA here. You can see the 3' acceptor arm, right? So what it is going to accept? It is going to accept the amino acid. So what it is going to accept? It is going to accept the amino acid. So you can see here serine is being attached, right? So this acceptor arm is also called as the amino acid acceptor arm. So it is going to carry this, so that tRNA is called as an adapter molecule. So apart from that, what all it is going to do is, it will also have an anticodon arm or loop. So generally tRNA, mature tRNA will appear like a clover leaf structure. It will have 3 arms. So one is T size C arm, D arm and anticodon arm or loop. So what will this anticodon loop do? It will carry the anticodon which are specific for that particular codon which the mRNA carries. So if you could remember, I have mentioned about the function of mRNA, that it is going to carry the codon, and who is going to recognize it? It is going to be the tRNA molecule. Apart from recognizing, what it is going to do? It is going to carry the amino acid which is specific for this particular codon. So there is no tRNA for stop codon, and there is a separate tRNA for initiation codon, and it is called as initiator tRNA, and you should remember there is no tRNA for stop codons. So this is the structure of an mRNA, which I have already said. You can see the cap at 5'N, poly A tail at 3'N, and again what I said, some untranslated regions are present where before the coding and after the coding sequences. You should remember this, before and after the coding sequences, some untranslated regions are seen. In between that only the start and stop codons will be present. So next will be our ribosomal RNA or rRNA, which constitute like most of the RNA that are present in the cell, that is about 85%. So where it is made. So in the nucleolus, so nucleolus is present in the nucleus. You know that the large and small rRNAs combine with small ribosomal proteins to form larger and smaller subunit of ribosome. For example, in prokaryote it will be 70S ribosome. So 70S ribosome contains of smaller subunit 30 and larger subunit 50. So these SS, for example, don't add this and get confused, because at the time of overlapping some units will be missed out, and then apart from that, these are not products of addition. They are also based, these subunits are based on the sedimentation coefficient, that is Swedberg coefficient, and not just by adding. So this will again contain a smaller subunit of 16S rRNA, and this will again contain a subunit of 23S and 5S rRNA. Again in eukaryotes, they will have 80S ribosome, which is the which is the ribosome, and it contains a larger 60S subunit and also a smaller 40S subunit. So the larger subunit is going to have 28S, 5.8S, and apart from that it is also going to have 5S, whereas the 40S is going to have 18S rRNA. So now we are going to discuss about the process of translation, which is again a very important process from the exam point of view. So translation refers to the process of polymerization of amino acids to form a polypeptide. So here what is going to be formed? The order and sequence of amino acid are defined by the sequences of bases that are present in the mRNA. So amino acids are joined together by a bond which is called as peptide bond. That is why proteins are also called as polypeptide. So formation of a peptide bond requires energy again. So therefore in the first phase itself, amino acids are activated in the presence of ATP and linked to their cognate tRNA, a process commonly called as charging of tRNA or amino acylation of tRNA. So first what is going to happen? By recognizing the anticodon that is present, what will happen? tRNA will carry the particular, or the amino acid will bind to that particular tRNA. So using what? With the help of ATP and with the help of the enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthase, and this process is called as amino acylation of tRNA molecule. So what is amino acylation? The particular amino acid, the specific amino acid is going to bind to that particular tRNA. So where it is going to bind? It is going to bind to the 3' acceptor arm. So it is going to bind there using with the help of what? With the help of enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthase, and apart from that, energy is also required for this process. So next will be the initiation of transcription. So what is going to happen here is, to the 30S, that is smaller subunit of ribosome, some initiation factors are going to bind. So after that what is going to happen? So that initiator tRNA, so we saw amino acylation of tRNA, right? So after that process, this initiator tRNA is also going to come. So our desired mRNA molecule is also coming here. So this ribosome binding site in the mRNA is also called as Shine-Dalgarno sequence. So this particular ribosome will contain some complementary sequences to that, which is called as anti-Shine-Dalgarno sequence for recognition of this mRNA molecule. So everything will bind with the help of what? With the help of energy. And here who is going to provide energy? It is going to be GTP and not the ATP molecule. So after that what is going to happen? After formation of 30S initiation complex, what is going to happen? The larger 50S subunit is going to come and bind to that ribosome in order to proceeding the translation process. 50S ribosomal subunit becomes bound to the 30S initiation complex, and what they are going to form? They are going to form 70S initiation complex. And now our initiation complex is ready and we are going to start the process of translation. So we know which is the first amino acid that is going to be added, that is going to be methionine. AUG also act as an initiator codon, we know that. So the next process will be elongation. So there are 3 sites in the large subunit of subsequent amino acid to bind and thus to be close enough to each other, the formation of a peptide bond. So there are three subunits that are present in the large site: P site, A site and the E site. So it will be present like this is peptidyl site, amino acyl site, and this is the E site or the exit site again, which is shown here. So after coming and binding to the P site, for example, only the first methionine tRNA will directly bind at the P site, whereas the other tRNAs will come and bind here. So after the formation of peptide bond, you can see here, this is the formation of peptide bond. So what will happen to this AAG? It will again move to the E site. So now this GCU is going to move here, which is carrying the amino acid arginine. So this arginine will again form a peptide bond here, and this GCU will also move out. So that is elongation process, and finally termination process, which is going to be catalyzed by controlled or helped by some release factors that are present. So we know there are stop codons present in mRNA, again for which there is no tRNA present. As soon as this stop codon comes, what will release factor do? It will help in releasing all the things, that is the smaller and larger subunit of your ribosome, mRNA molecule, everything, so that all these will again go as a chain and continue their work for protein synthesis. Similarly, here also the same. What will happen to the tRNA molecule which is going to the E site? That tRNA molecule will again go and carry the specific amino acid and come back to the protein synthesis process. That is what is going to happen here. So now we are going to watch a video on translation or protein synthesis process. So we are going to discuss about the topic translation here. So what is translation? You know that the synthesis of protein from an mRNA template is called as translation, and this involves several key molecules like mRNA, your ribosome, that is larger and smaller subunit, and apart from that your tRNA molecule is also very important because it is an adapter molecule. Release factor is also important. What are the stages that are involved in translation? The first one is initiation, second is elongation, and the third one will be termination. So we are seeing about initiation here. The eukaryotic mRNA, what it is going to do? It is going to come first and it will carry what? It will be having sequences, that is codes which code for particular amino acid. And who is going to identify that? We know that there are some untranslated regions and only few mRNA codons and few places where there are codes, and this is the smaller ribosomal subunit. So now the initiation site is here. So we know that some sequences are present which are used to recognize. So now this tRNA molecule carrying amino acid is going to come and bind here, and what is going to happen? It is carrying anticodon which will be complementary to that particular mRNA molecule. And now what is going to be happening? And now the process of translation is going to start, and before that who is going to come and bind? It is the larger subunit who is going to come and bind to that molecule. So now our initiation complex is ready and now the translation will proceed. So now what has to happen? Peptide bond has to form, and as I said here, one amino acid which is called as one rRNA which is called as 23S rRNA. So remember that it is going to act as an enzyme and help in the formation of peptide bond. So 23S rRNA is going to act as an enzyme and help in the formation of peptide bond. You can see elongation process happening here, and this sliding movement is happening. So this sliding movement is happening because of the enzyme which is called as peptidyl transferase. So you should remember both of these enzymes. So peptidyl transferase and 23S rRNA. So after elongation, you can see termination is going to happen now, and now for termination you know there are no codon. So stop codon is coming, no tRNA. So now release factor is coming and binding. So what is going to happen after termination? The protein molecule is going off and all the molecules are, mRNA and ribosomes are separated, so that what is going to happen? Each mRNA and ribosomal subunit are going to do their work. So secondly, regulation of gene expression is our next major main concept. So here what we are going to study is gene expression refers to a wide variety of sequence of events that majorly occur at various levels. Considering the gene expression results in the formation of polypeptide, it can be regulated at several levels, and what are they? So first one is during the transcriptional level itself. The second one is during the process of post-transcriptional modification, that is during splicing. Third thing is during the transport of mRNA to the nucleus to the cytoplasm. So last one is at the translational level. So for that regulation of gene expression, a model called as operon concept was first proposed by Jacob and Monod. So the elucidation of lac operon was also a result of close association between Genesis, Jacob and a biochemist Monod. So scientists were first able to elucidate a transcriptionally regulated system. So this is a lactose operon that is present in E. coli, and it is a lac operon. Similarly, many operons are present like tryptophan operon, arabinose operon also present. So I is nothing but it will code for an repressor protein. I will be telling you what is a repressor. Repressor is nothing but it will be binding to this operator site. So this operator is nothing but a site that is present in between this promoter and the structural genes. For example, in E. coli, lactose will be broken down by these enzymes beta-galactosidase, permease and transacetylase. So here permease is nothing but it will allow the entry of lactose into the cell, and transacetylase will be involved in methylation, and the major enzyme for breaking down of lactose into glucose and galactose is beta-galactosidase. So for that this enzyme is required, and these three genes are required. So you can see this O will be present in between this promoter and structural gene, and what this O will be doing, this O will be blocked by this repressor protein, so that what will happen, the enzyme cannot bind to the promoter and the transcription process cannot continue. So for that only the repressor will be binding to the operator. So if that repressor molecule is removed, again what will happen, the translation will proceed and they will be coding for particular enzyme. So now we are again going to watch an video on lac operon concept so that you can understand that very clearly. So yes, the lac operon model, and it was proposed by two people, Jacob and Monod. So in E. coli, lac operon is a set of inducible set of genes like activation. These genes are responsible for the breakdown of lactose into cellular sugars that is used for the particular cellular metabolism. So now we are going to get into the bacterial DNA molecule. You can see the repressor protein which is coded by the I gene, and this is the mRNA molecule. So now what is going to happen? These are lactose molecules. You can now see that these are nothing but the enzymes, that is beta-galactosidase and permease. So transacetylase is not mentioned in this video. So beta-galactosidase and permease enzymes are present. So again you can see the DNA in an E. coli cell. There who is going to be present in that O site, the repressor molecule will be bound there. So you can see now this is the lac operon and the repressor molecule, the controlling region repressor molecule is bound here. So now what is going to happen? The lactose molecules are going to come and bind to that repressor molecules. So this lactose is called as an inducer and it is removing the repressor. So now what is happening? The RNA polymerase is coming and binding. It is going to produce functional mRNA, which is again going to code for functional protein. So now what is happening? Translational process is happening. You can see here proteins are produced which are nothing but enzyme. Beta-galactosidase and permease are going to be produced here. So now what is the work of or function of them? This permease is going to allow the lactose entry into that particular cell, and apart from that what is going to happen? This beta-galactosidase is going to break down the lactose molecule. So you can see here permease is allowing the entry and beta-galactosidase is going to break the lactose molecules and provide energy for cellular metabolism. After breakdown of all lactose molecules, what will happen now? The lactose molecule that is present on the repressor protein will be removed. So that what is going to happen? The repressor is again going to go and bind in that operator region. So again the translation process or a transcription process here itself is going to stop. And what is going to happen? The enzyme production is also going to stop. So again when lactose entry is there, it will continue. So this is the diagram of lac operon, which is again very important. Operons are nothing but they are regulatory system in which genes coding for some functionally related enzymes will be clustered together. So here this structural gene G, Y, A are coding for some functionally related enzymes like beta galactosidase, permease and transacetylase. So they are being clubbed or located together. So this is an very important diagram, this one and the next diagram. So here what is going to happen? This repressor molecule, in the absence of an inducer, it is going and binding at the operator site. You can see here, right? So what is going to happen now? It is going to block the transcriptional process. Who is producing this repressor molecule? This I gene. So you can remember this like Pipozya, P-I-P-O-Z-Y-A. So you can remember it in that way. So next, if the inducer is present, what is going to happen? This inducer is going to bind to this particular region, repressor, right? So this repressor becomes inactive and it does not bind to the operator region. So now who is going to bind here? It is going to be the polymerase enzyme. So polymerase enzyme will bind and functional mRNA will be produced. It will be coding for particular enzyme. Again, breakdown of lactose will happen. So this is an important concept. So next we are going to see about Human Genome Project and DNA fingerprinting. So Human Genome Project is a mega project and it was begun in the month of October 1990. So it is a 13-year-old project which was coordinated by the US. So it was done in USA, coordinated by the US Department of Energy and National Institute of Health. So along with them, there were 12 different countries who participated in this, and apart from that, Wellcome Trust in UK also became a major part of this project, and this was completed in the year 2003. Again, this HGP is very important from your question paper point of view. So approximately 3 into 10 power 9 base pair. So human genome is said to have 3 into 10 power 9 base pair. And if the cost of sequencing is $3 per base pair, the total estimated cost. So you should remember the estimated cost, that is $9 billion US dollars. So knowledge about effects of DNA variation among individuals can lead to revolutionary new ways to diagnose, treat and someday prevent thousands of diseases that are affecting human beings. And because of this development of Human Genome Project, development of a new area called bioinformatics, because all these data were stored in form of computer, right? Because book is highly impossible to print all this information. It will take several books to store this. So because of this HGP only, this branch bioinformatics came into existence, and there is a rapid development in that area. So now we are going to see about what are the goals of Human Genome Project. So that is nothing but to identify approximately 30,000 genes that are present in a human DNA, to determine the sequence of 3 billion chemical base pairs that make up the human DNA, to improve tools for data analysis. Apart from that, to also address the ethical, legal and social issues that could be arise from this process. So what are the methodologies that are involved? First one is identifying all the genes that are expressed as RNA, that is they are coding or able to transcribe. So if they are coding for particular RNA, that is alone identify, that is called as express the sequence tags. So second method is nothing but every sequence, if it is coding or not coding, that will be identified, that is termed as sequence annotation. So third one is nothing but DNA sequencing. So DNA sequencing is nothing but the process of determining the exact order of 3 billion paired chemical building blocks, like for example ATGC, that make up the DNA. For example, 24 different chromosomes are present. For example, don't ask why it is only 23 pair of chromosome, but there are 24 different. Apart from 22 autosomes, we have one X and Y chromosome that are also present. So, DNA sequencing was the greatest technical challenge in this human genome project. For sequencing, what they did is the total DNA from the cell is isolated and converted into many random fragments of relatively smaller size and cloned in a suitable host using specialized vector. So, here cloning results in the amplification of DNA fragments which are used for sequencing. So, commonly which hosts are used and which vectors are used are again very important. So, commonly used host organisms are bacteria and yeast, whereas commonly used vectors are bacterial artificial chromosomes and yeast artificial chromosomes, which are again very important. So, next topic which we are going to learn is about DNA fingerprinting. So, DNA fingerprinting was discovered by a person called Alex Jeffries. So, we share 99.9% of our DNA. So, with one another. Only very small amount of DNA, that is 0.1% of DNA is making us different from others. So, DNA fingerprinting is identifying the differences in some specific region in DNA sequence which is called as repetitive DNA, because in these sequences a small stretch of DNA is repeated many times. So, they are also called as variable number tandem repeats or VNTR. So, these repetitive DNA, how can they be identified is, they can be identified by using density gradient centrifugation peaks. So, what this do is, the bulk DNA which resembles everyone will form a high peak, whereas these VNTRs will form a small peak when compared to them. So, variable number tandem repeats were discovered by A.R. Wyman and R. White in the year 1980, and they are also called as satellite DNA. So, it is a short chromosomal locus sequence of bases in a DNA that is repeated at a specific and highly polymorphic. It is variable in many people. So, for example, this polymorphism VNTR will vary from person to person. For example, if your father is having one sequence of VNTR, so you will be having that sequences will show high similarity between the parent and the offspring, but it will be varying from individual to individual. That is why this DNA fingerprinting is specifically used in parental dispute. Over 99% or 3 billion nucleotide pair are identical among individual. No two people, so you must remember, identical twins will carry the same amount, the DNA of the identical twins will be similar to each other. They will not show any variation. You should remember, this is only for identical twins and not non-identical twins. Depending on the base composition, length of the segment, the number of repetitive unit, here the satellite DNA is classified into many categories like microsatellites, mini satellites, etc. So, these do not code for any protein, but they form a large portion of our human genome. These sequences show a high degree of polymorphism and form the basis of DNA fingerprinting. So, these are, you can see the structure of satellite DNA, microsatellite and mini satellite that are present. So, you can see the sequence of repetitive DNA that are present in this particular chromosome. So, since DNA from every tissue from an individual show the same degree of polymorphism, they become very useful identical tool for forensic application. Further, as the polymorphisms are inheritable from parent to children, as I said, DNA fingerprinting is the basis of paternity testing in case of dispute. So, again, who discovered that? Alex Jeffrey in the year 1984. So, this is the protocol for DNA fingerprinting. So, the blood sample will be collected and DNA will be isolated from the sample and DNA will be subjected to restriction, that is using restriction endonucleases, it will be fragmented. Then after that, fragments of DNA are separated by electrophoresis, transfer of DNA to southern blotting membrane. So, after blotting it, they will be hybridizing it with radioactive probes. So, these radioactive probes will be binding to the complementary DNA. After that, the excess radioactive probes will be washed off and that nylon membrane will be subjected to X-ray film in order to see the autoradiography and the pattern which is developed. So, DNA isolation, DNA can be obtained from blood, semen, root of the hair sample, etc. So, DNA, if the quantity is very less, it is amplified using polymerase chain reaction, and you know what is PCR, denaturation, and then the DNA will be denatured, and after that it will be annealed, and after that what will happen, it will be extended. So, denaturation you can see here, and after that what will happen, opening of two strands, and during the annealing process what will be happening, this extension and amplifying, that is furthermore production of DNA will be happening. So, then it is subjected to electrophoresis in order to separate the fragments to obtain pure fragments. Then finally, it is subjected to blotting. So, the single stranded DNA gets embedded into the nylon membrane as the towels draw moisture. The DNA strands are transferred onto the nylon membrane by the means of capillary action, and then the bands are blotted on nylon membrane. This process is called as blotting, and it is more commonly known as Southern blotting because it was developed by the person called Southern. So, now the movement of these fragments will depend on their length, and this will be resulting in the formation of bands. You can see as the time is increasing, the bands are being formed here, and the movement will be based on their length. So, next, hybridization, you know the bands are flooded with radioactive probes, that is the nylon membrane, it is the nitrocellulose membrane, okay. So, the probes attaches by pairing with those of the restriction fragments that are complementary to its sequences, and the probes are prepared by using fluorescent or radioactive substances. Then they get attached to the complementary VNTR sequence, then they are washed off, they are kept in contact with the X-ray film, and then what will happen, this is autoradiogram, and this is how it is, the bands will be seen, and this is the Alex Jeffries, the person who developed this, and this is all for DNA fingerprinting. So, it is used for parental dispute, catching criminals, and also in forensic sciences. So, now we are going to analyze the previous year question paper, just a quick analysis of our question paper. So, again about genetic code they have asked, about stop codon, unambiguous codon, degenerate codon, and universal codon you have to write. So, second again yeast and bacterial thing they are asking about YAC and BAC, that is used in Human Genome Project, which is nothing but the vector and the cells that are being used here, yeast artificial cell and bacterial artificial cell. So, write the percentage of total human genome that codes for protein. Again, in that you have to mention that everything is about Human Genome Project here. Expand SNP, identify scientists in HGP. Then finally, Michelson and Stahl carried out centrifugation. About Michelson and Stahl experiment, they use cesium chloride density gradient to separate the heavy nitrogen DNA molecule. So, from this strand of DNA segment, you have to write the complementary strand, and you also have to write a possible RNA strand. For this, while writing RNA strand, you should remember that this strand 3' to 5' only will act as a template. For example, if they are giving 5' and 3', don't get confused and copy from the 5' 3' strand. Just write the complementary strand of write this complementary strand first. Then for writing RNA, instead of T here in the place of A, you have to use U for RNA. So, then describe the experiment carried by Hershey and Chase experiment. Again, you have to write that and its conclusion and events that are happening in the replication fork and what is the role of DNA ligase enzyme. So, construct a label transcription unit from which the RNA segment given below has been transcribed. Write the complete name of enzyme that transcribe this. You have to construct a transcriptional unit, that is, you have to just mention before this, you have to mention the promoter site and you have to write the terminator here, and what is going to happen, it is going to RNA polymerase is going to catalyze all. You can even draw like a DNA strand and you can proceed that and explain. So, next will be what are the role of Gamow, Khurana, Marshall-Nirenberg and Severo-Ochoa in genetic code, and what is the importance of genetic code. Again, you have to write that. What is the dual use of deoxyribonucleotide? Apart from acting as complementary strand, it will also act as things which provide energy, like for example ATP, GTP, CTP, TTP. So again you have to write central dogma, and what is the exception of central dogma? You can mention the virus and write reverse transcriptase can transcribe RNA to DNA back again. So you can write that. So next, transforming principle, again Frederick Griffith experiment and biochemical nature of transforming, characterization of transforming principle you have to mention. Again, genetic code question is present, universal, unambiguous, degenerate, and also about initiation codon. Similarly, YAC is again asked here, and what are the two methodologies that are involved in HGP is also asked here. Again, write the structure and function of tRNA molecule, why it is an adapter molecule. Explain the process of splicing of H and RNA. Similarly, all the process, same process will take place. You have to just write the spliceosome and S and RNP will first bind and they will remove the intron and join the exons. So again, what you are going to practice? You are going to practice transcription, translation with diagram, HGP, and also DNA fingerprinting. So with this, we are going to close this class. So what did we discuss in our class today? We discussed about transcription, genetic code, translation, regulation of gene expression, human genome project, and finally DNA fingerprinting. So followed by this, in next class we will be discussing about chapter number 8, human health and diseases. So it's time for me to leave. Before I leave, it's time for you to prepare. Schedule, prepare, and score. Thank you, students. Bye-bye.
For more queries, please contact Buddy on 98408 44987 or visit buddy.live.